Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching The World Report. Let's first take a look at the headlines. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has praised US President Donald Trump's revolutionary plan for Gaza, claiming it is a better for Israel deal. Meanwhile, Palestinian officials say 3 people have been killed in the West Bank. Russia has launched over 150 drones at Ukraine as President Zelensky's forces launched 3 new attacks in the Kursk region. Meanwhile, President Trump says Russian President Vladimir Putin wants people to stop dying after the 2 leaders speak about the ongoing war. Meanwhile, Trump has announced 25% tariffs on all imports of steel and aluminium into the US. He is also set to announce reciprocal tariffs on all nations that have levied imports on America. Meanwhile, Trump has defended Elon Musk and Doge after recent backlash over his departmental shutdowns, stating Musk has already found $1 billion worth of government savings. Musk is set to turn his attention to the military, with Trump citing hundreds of billions in military fraud. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised President Trump's plan for US control over Gaza, calling it revolutionary. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes continue. The IDF targeted alleged Hezbollah sites in Lebanon, and military operations continued in the West Bank as tensions in the region remain high. Here is the full update.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed President Trump's plan for US control over Gaza and the displacement of its residents as revolutionary. Upon his return to Israel from Washington, Netanyahu delivered a statement to his cabinet, striking a triumphant tone about the prospect of US intervention in the region.
טומנים בחובם הישגים אדירים נוספים שיכולים להבטיח את ביטחון ישראל לדורות. הרבה יותר טוב למדינת ישראל. מהפכני, יצירתי, אנחנו דנים בזה. והוא מאוד נחוש לבצע אותו. אני חושב שזה פותח בפנינו גם כן אפשרויות רבות.
Trump's proposal aims to relocate Gaza's population to other countries in the region, while the US would oversee the redevelopment of the area. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Palestinian civilians were able to cross the Netzarim corridor after Israeli forces withdrew, allowing vehicles to move freely.
تمام، وصلتنا معلومات بفضل الله عز وجل انه الجيش الاسرائيلي انسحب من منطقة نتساريم مخلفا وراء كمية دمار هائلة جدا لا يتوقعها العقل البشري.
Israeli airstrikes continued in the region, targeting Hezbollah sites in Lebanon, while Israeli forces also conducted operations in the West Bank. 3 people, including a pregnant woman, were killed during a raid in the Nur Shams refugee camp, leading to calls for an investigation into the incident. As international actors like the US propose new solutions, the region's future remains uncertain, dependent on the delicate balance between diplomacy, military action, and the aspirations of those caught in the conflict. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's now head to Europe for more of the latest updates from that continent. A man has been arrested after a knife attack in Stone Batter, North Dublin. The attack had left 3 men injured. 2 victims sustained serious but non-life-threatening injuries, while a third had a minor injury. Reports say they suffered slashing-type wounds. Irish Prime Minister called the attack shocking. He later took to the press to wish the victims a full recovery. A fight at a youth football match near Paris has left 1 person seriously injured. He was later airlifted to hospital. Violence broke out when armed youths attacked a football stadium during half-time of the match. A player then allegedly stabbed one of the attackers, sparking further chaos. After the fight, 2 players jumped into the River Seine and police rescued one of them. The victim was flown to a Paris hospital by helicopter. France's Football Federation is planning legal action. Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia have joined the European power grid after cutting ties with Russia. Lithuanian President Nausėda said the switch was completed on Sunday. The Baltic states sped up the move after Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. They feared that they too could be targeted and that Russia was blackmailing them using electricity supplies. and Al-Qaeda call it a big step for their security. Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti claimed victory in Sunday's election, though exit polls show his party winning around 40%. Back in 2021, last general election, they got 50%, downing their current projection. Kurti remains confident of reforming a government, saying his coalition will continue its work. His popularity has risen due to efforts to strengthen control over the Serb-majority north. 3 journalists from Turkey's Bergen newspaper have been detained under anti-terror laws over a story about Istanbul's chief prosecutor. The journalists were taken from their homes late on Saturday and released hours later. Media watchdogs and opposition leaders condemned the move. Bergen's editor-in-chief said the report was based on public information and accused authorities of trying to silence the press. Health Minister Andrew Gwynn has been sacked and suspended from the Labour Party after a newspaper revealed offensive WhatsApp messages. Gwynn insulted constituents, MPs and councillors using racist and sexist remarks. He apologised on X, calling his comments badly misjudged, and accepted Labour's decision. A government spokesperson said PM Sir Keir Starmer is committed to high standards in public office. Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook called the messages completely unacceptable. US President Donald Trump's top officials will travel to Europe for security talks with a special focus on Ukraine. He's also said the negotiations are gaining momentum. This comes as Russia launches 151 drones in Ukraine and President Zelensky's army launched 3 attacks in Russian territory. Here is a detailed report.
A trio of top Trump administration officials will make separate trips to Europe this week, with security and Washington's commitment to Ukraine expected to be at the heart of their discussions. Vice President J.D. Vance will take part in an AI summit in France and then attend the Munich Security Conference in Germany along with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth will meanwhile visit the headquarters of US military commands in Germany before attending a meeting of NATO defense ministers and a gathering of Ukraine's international supporters in Belgium. These trips will focus on US President Donald Trump's call on allies to boost their defense spending drastically. This comes as Trump reported progress in potential truce talks between Russia and Ukraine, but declined to provide any details about any communication with Russian President Vladimir Putin. On the battleground, Ukraine's military said it shot down 70 drones out of the 151 that Russia launched to attack the country overnight. Damages were reported in several regions, including Kyiv. Meanwhile, Ukraine launched drone strikes on 8 Russian regions and annexed Crimea, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Russian air defense reportedly shot down 35 drones across several areas. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's get some updates from across the world of business. Indian stock markets fell sharply in early trade. This comes despite the Reserve Bank of India's rate cuts. The benchmark indices opened lower and continued to decline as selling pressure intensified. The BSE Sensex lost over 600 points, while the NSE Nifty dropped close to 200 points in early trade. Shiseido, a popular Chinese company, reported a 73% drop in full-year profits, citing weaker consumer spending in China. The company posted an operating profit of 7.58 billion yen in 2023, down from 28.13 billion yen the previous year. As a key player in luxury cosmetics, Shiseido sees China's slowing demand as a challenge expected to continue into this year. Nokia has appointed Intel executive Justin Hotard as its new CEO, replacing Pekka Lundmark from April the 1st. Hotard, currently leading Intel's data center and AI group, brings expertise in artificial intelligence and data solutions. The move comes as telecom gear makers seek new growth avenues amid declining 5G equipment sales. McDonald's is expected to report another quarter of same-store sales decline. Traffic to the fast food giant's US restaurants fell after an investigation by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The centre linked its famous Quarter Pounder burgers to a recent E. coli outbreak. Shares of McDonald's have climbed just 2% over the past year, raising its market cap to around $211 billion. US exports of coal have been rising steadily to satisfy growing global demand for the world's dirtiest fossil fuel, but its domestic consumption has decreased. The global shift away from coal remains challenging, largely driven by rising demand in Asia. Dorothy May, who is the project manager for Global Energy Monitor's Global Coal Mine Tracker, reiterated this claim. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau employees were told to work remotely because their Washington, D.C. headquarters would be closed until February the 14th. The memo from CFBP Chief Operating Officer Adam Martinez follows an email from newly installed Acting Director Russell Vought, which instructed staff to suspend nearly all activities. The United States is set to impose 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports. President Donald Trump says the move will apply to all countries, including Canada and Mexico. He also warned of reciprocal tariffs on nations that tax US goods. China has already retaliated with duties on American exports. Here are the latest updates.
United States President Donald Trump has announced plans to impose 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports and reciprocal tariffs on countries leveling duties on US goods. Trump said on Sunday that he would formally announce the tariffs on steel and aluminium the following day, and the countervailing levies later in the week. Trump did not specify which country would be subject to the retaliatory tariffs, but said they would not affect all countries.
We'll also be announcing steel tariffs on Monday.
Tomorrow?
Monday, yeah, tomorrow.
What countries will those go on?
Everybody, steel.
Including Canada and Mexico?
Yeah, any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum too.
10%?
No, 25%.
25 for aluminum?
25 for both.
Trump's latest tariff threats come after he last month announced plans to impose 25% tariffs on all Canadian and Mexican goods, as well as a 10% tariff on Chinese imports. Trump's tariffs against China, which announced retaliatory tariffs on US exports, took effect on Tuesday. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's now get all of the latest from across the Indo-Pacific region. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has called for urgent action to improve the lives of Indigenous Australians. A new report shows Indigenous people face shorter life expectancy, poorer health and higher incarceration rates. While progress is being made on some fronts, disparities remain. This includes a life expectancy gap of around 8 years and high rates of diseases like rheumatic heart disease. The Prime Minister stressed that Australia must close the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities. Police in Bangladesh have arrested over 1,300 people in Operation Devil Hunt, targeting gangs linked to the ousted regime of Sheikh Hasina. The crackdown, launched after unrest in early February, aims to uproot former regime loyalists. Police say the operation will continue until the groups are dismantled. The unrest was triggered by reports that Hasina, in exile in India, would broadcast from Facebook. This led to protests and the destruction of buildings tied to her family, including the Museum of Bangladesh's first president. Beijing has condemned a joint US-Japan statement criticising its actions in the South China Sea. The statement, issued after a meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Ishiba, condemned China's provocative activities and unlawful claims. China, which claims nearly all of the South China Sea, rejected the statement, calling it an attack and interference in its internal affairs. Beijing's territorial claims in the region overlap with multiple Southeast nations. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi will visit Europe and the US this month before attending the G20 meeting in South Africa. From February the 12th to the 17th, he will visit Britain and Ireland and participate in the Munich Security Conference. Wang plans to use the G20 talks in Johannesburg to promote multilateralism and global economic growth. His trip comes after US Senator Marco Rubio announced he would skip the G20 meeting over concerns about its anti-American agenda. Vietnam is planning to cut 1 in 5 public sector jobs, aiming to save billions from government budgets. This comes as the government slashes ministries and agencies from 30 to 22. The move is part of a larger reform described as a revolution by officials. Top leader To Lam emphasises the need for change, saying the public sector shouldn't be a haven for weak officials. Around 100,000 workers will face redundancy or early retirement, though full details on further cuts remain unclear. Indonesia has launched a new health checkup program offering free screenings for all citizens. The initiative aimed at the early detection of diseases like cardiovascular issues and congenital disorders. This is one of President Prabowo Subianto's election promises. Citizens will receive a voucher for free checkups on their birthdays or within 30 days of this date. Students will also be able to get screenings at school starting in July. This initiative follows Prabowo's other social welfare measures, including a free meal program to combat malnutrition. President Trump has defended Elon Musk's push to restructure government operations amid legal hurdles, transparency concerns and conflicts of interest. In an exclusive interview, the president reveals new plans for Doge and his bold proposals for Canada's future. Let's take a look at them in this report.
President Donald Trump has stated he expects Elon Musk to uncover hundreds of billions in waste and fraud within the Pentagon. Speaking in an interview, Trump revealed Musk will soon audit military spending as part of a wider effort to reduce the federal workforce. With the Pentagon's budget approaching $1 trillion, Trump believes significant savings are possible. Musk, who leads the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as Doge, has faced criticism over potential conflicts of interest, but Trump insists Musk is acting in the nation's best interest. However, the defense secretary has welcomed this scrutiny, highlighting the need for greater transparency in military spending. Trump also hinted that the Department of Education could be next in line for review. In the same interview, Trump voiced frustration with Mexico and Canada over drug trafficking and border security, even bringing back his controversial idea of making Canada the 51st US state, a proposal widely opposed by Canadians. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's now take a look at the updates coming in from across South America. In Ecuador's election, incumbent President Daniel Noboa holds a narrow lead. With 90% of the votes counted, Noboa has 44.4%, while his rival, Luisa Gonzalez, has 43.9%. The race remains too close to call, and a second-round runoff seems likely. Tensions are high in the country, which is facing ongoing violence. Chilean authorities have issued evacuation alerts for the south as wildfires rage in the region. So far, at least one person has died. The government said the move aims to protect more than 860,000 people. Chile's government ordered the evacuation in regions of imminent risk, urging residents to leave their homes and seek refuge in safe areas. Nicaragua's government has sharply criticised the Vatican, calling it depraved. The remarks follow an interview with exiled Bishop Rolando Alvarez, a strong critic of President Daniel Ortega. This is one of the harshest attacks on the Vatican yet by the nation. The Ortega government has accused Catholic institutions of trying to undermine the regime. A US federal court has blocked the Trump administration's plans to send 3 Venezuelan immigrants held in New Mexico to Guantanamo Bay. Lawyers for the detainees argued that the men were wrongfully accused of ties to a violent gang. They requested a temporary restraining order to prevent the transfer, citing concerns over access to legal counsel and due process. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez has condemned the US sanctions on Iran's oil sector. He called the measures arbitrary and against international law. Rodriguez also warned of the negative impact this could have on the stability of the region. The sanctions imposed by President Donald Trump on February the 6th target entities, ships and individuals from countries like China, India and the UAE. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has called for his ministers to resign. Environment Minister Susana Mohammed is the second official to step down in a week. Tensions have risen over the presence of Petro's scandal-hit aides in government. Petro says the reshuffle aims to ensure his agenda is carried out effectively. Watch the latest in this report.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro has asked his ministers and senior officials to resign amid rising tensions in his government, days after publicly criticizing his cabinet on live television. The move follows a 5-hour televised meeting last Tuesday, where Petro accused several ministers, including those in trade, education and health, of failing to deliver key projects. On social media, he confirmed upcoming cabinet changes to ensure better implementation of his agenda. Earlier on Sunday, Environment Minister Susana Mohammed became the second official to resign in a week after the heated meeting.
Realmente, como feminista y como mujer, yo no me puedo sentar en esta mesa de gabinete de nuestro proyecto progresista con Armando Benedetti.
Ministers have also voiced concerns over the presence of Petro's close aide, Armando Benedetti, who is under investigation for illegal campaign financing and has faced domestic abuse allegations.
Y no me parece en este gobierno las actitudes de Laura Sarabia con nosotros, conmigo, que me ha tocado decirle, respéteme, que soy la vicepresidenta, y no me parece, y respeto a Benedetti, pero no comparto, presidente, su decisión. La respeto porque usted es el jefe de Estado y es el presidente, pero no comparto su decisión.
Additionally, there is discontent over the appointment of Laura Sarabia as foreign minister, despite her involvement in past political scandals.
Disculpe, presidente, que sea tan honesta, pero como se trata de hablarle de frente al país, yo hoy pongo sobre la mesa los temas que ya lo he dicho en privado, que se los he dicho a usted, y hoy los pongo públicamente.
The political shake-up also comes just weeks after some ministers took office, including Sarabia, and the ministers for Finance, Information and Transport. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's now grab some of the latest updates from across North America. At least 41 people have died in a bus accident in southern Mexico, according to the Tabasco government. The collision occurred early on Saturday morning near Esquega, when a bus travelling from Cancun to Tabasco collided with a trailer. The bus was completely consumed by flames after the crash, with 48 passengers on board. The bus company expressed deep sorrow over the incident and confirmed it was cooperating with authorities to determine the cause. The company also stated the bus was within the speed limits at the time of the crash. Joran Ross Buffalo, a 40-year-old man from Calgary, Canada, was found guilty of raping a 90-year-old woman in her senior residence apartment. The jury convicted him of aggravated sexual assault and break and enter to commit sexual assault after deliberating for an hour. The incident occurred on January the 1st, 2021 at an apartment near the Confederation Park. Initially, Calgary police dismissed the victim's claims, attributing them to her dementia. However, after Buffalo's shirt was found at the scene and a rape kit was conducted, he was arrested in February. Buffalo's sentencing is pending. A man was killed and 11 others were injured in a multi-vehicle pile-up triggered by a snow squall on Highway 11 near Orillia, Ontario. The Ontario Provincial Police reported the collision involved several vehicles. The crash resulted in the death of a 49-year-old man, with 11 others hospitalised with varying injuries. Poor visibility and hazardous driving conditions due to heavy snow contributed to the accident, urging drivers to avoid the roads if possible. Emergency crews responded promptly to the scene. In Jamaica, the Hunts Bay police have confirmed the arrest of a suspect in connection with the murder of a 14-year-old called Price Johnson on February the 6th. The man was apprehended earlier this week. He was taken to the police station for further investigation. The nation is still reeling in shock and horror after news emerged of the incident on Thursday afternoon, with many from her school, including students and guidance counsellors, struggling to come to terms with the brutality of the teenager's killing. 28-year-old Peter Morgan of Church Lincoln in Jamaica has been charged with wounding with intent and using a firearm to commit a felony. The charges stem from an incident on January the 28th when Morgan allegedly approached a man around and fired at him. The victim, fearing for his life, ran from the scene and later discovered he had been shot and injured. He was admitted to the hospital for treatment. Based on eyewitness statements, Morgan was apprehended and charged. His court date is being finalised. That is unfortunately all we have time for, but we'll be back very soon with more of your latest international news.